And we're live, Thomas Bia reached. Okay, folks, busy show tonight. Fulcha Guji Ahandina in our Dinta Anacht. Tonight we have Karen and Dahi has joined us after a long suspension.
Sabbatical. Wait a minute.
No.
I'm flying the colors now.
Back.
Oh no, I'm impressed.
Yes, very good. Dahi. No advertising. No.
Do I have to cover it up? I'll put a black streak.
No. Look, we said we were going to talk about the important news this week about the video on the TG Cahir show program Era Nua, and the quite a lot of feedback and quite a lot of comments, kickback against it. I saw it online last week, so we're going to chat about that, and we also said we're going to talk about the extension to the unlawful. I don't know what's going on, what you'd call it, the COVID vaccine passports emergency legislation. And there's also been a few requests to chat about the tax harmonisation plan, so we can touch on that briefly, but we haven't done much. We'll maybe leave that for another day to do a more in-depth one. But we can just mention that in our discussion at the very end. But look, we'll kick it off. I'm going to try and share the screen about the programme that we said we were going to. So hopefully, bear with me. It was the TG Cahir show from last week. And it was the comment that was made specifically about the chap, about the decline of the Irish people. So hopefully this, right, here we go.
And I was like, where are you from? She goes, my man's from China and my dad's from Africa. I'm like, whoa, Ireland is unique now. We're mixed. Because I can imagine in 10 years' time, there's going to be Barack Obama's walking around, Beyonce's and different sorts. Mixture of people. So the whites are going extinct here now, so we're taking over.
Wait, what? I mean, my view on that is he actually came out and said it. Like he basically said what a lot of us are kind of thinking. The only thing is he said it in a kind of a sneering, sarcastic. He's glad to see it, and like if we had said it, we would be laughed at. We would be shouted down as racists. Xenophobes. It's just ridiculous. Dahi, do you want to kick us off? You did a lot of stuff on Twitter about it, which
I did indeed. A few of us got in on this. If you want to check out the hashtag Era Nua, you'll see all kinds of stuff. But first of all, like the guy is a comedian, so I like to give him some sort of leeway because he's trying to be funny. Now, of course, this is going to touch a lot of us a little, well, let's just say the wrong way. But his bigger problem was saying that Ireland is somehow is unique now because of the mixture. Now, that was a very strange kind of comment to come up with, the idea that we'd be more unique now that we're more like the rest of Europe that's allowing greater immigration. It doesn't make a lot of sense, I'm afraid. But that's the one that irked me more. The other one was kind of stupid, and I think you're right. I mean, if anybody else would have said it of the nation, we'd catch hell for it, but he's not going to, so we have to accept that. I'm gonna plug in here. I've got to do something because I've switched phones, so now I've got to change something here.
Yeah, we had a bit of technical glitch, but some people have said it was comedy, and we'll give a little bit of a leeway. But the thing about it is, it's actually quite true what he said. I mean, at the present immigration levels, the indigenous Irish are going to be extinct in a matter of what? Take your pick, 20 years, whatever. Karen, what's your take on it?
Well, I mean, he was predicting something that could happen in 10 years, and he's right about that. And I know it's just he kind of treated like it was funny. And I know comedians use material to point out the truth and they make a joke out of it. But when you come to a society, a group of people, no matter where it is in the world, you have to respect that group of people, race or the natives. And I've seen some of the comments on Twitter earlier a couple of days ago, and they were saying, I wouldn't take this too seriously. But why wouldn't you take it seriously? It goes for any group of people, whether it's France or Ireland or the UK or anywhere. We respect other cultures and the cultures of people, the countries they're in. So when you come into this country, you treat it with respect. And I wouldn't like to see an African society dwindle, with loads of white people coming in and destroying that culture. Now, it's interesting, it actually came up in the program, the very first one, before Fabu, I think it's, what's his name, Fabu D came on. There's a lady who was interviewed. She came from Ghana in 1978, and she had a great life here, loved the country, nursing, the whole lot. She never had any racism, and she said, but in the last few years, she's seen a change because Ireland has changed. There's loads of cultures coming in, and she said, I wouldn't like to see that happening in Ghana because everyone would feel the same way. Like, you would feel your culture and your language and your history was changing. And obviously, I would understand the way Irish people would feel that way. So she said she wasn't dismissive of it the way Fabu was. And I mean, yes, he's a comedian, but I really think the fact that he laughed as if it was, it's too important of an issue to ignore. And I'm disgusted that Chidi Carr was viewing this and letting it happen. I mean, it's okay. I mean, you could do a program, but you still have to respect the culture of the Irish people, and and treat the Irish people with respect. And I don't think Chidi Carr was doing this in this case. And they let it ride. And I think that's you have to take something like this seriously for any people in any country. Because we go, say for instance, you're going on holidays to Spain or to France, and you go there to look at their culture, to enjoy their music and their art and their scenery, and you talk about that because they take pride in their country, and we should as well. The other issue as well,
he's actually coming out and said it.
Say that again.
He's accurate in what he said. He's actually come out and said it. He knows it. He can see it, and basically, we can see it, but everybody else doesn't seem to want to acknowledge that at the levels that they're going. He's quite correct in what he said. I'd like to know, Karen, you were talking about writing a letter into the IBA or RTE and the TG Car and see what their actual take. Are they happy with that narrative being portrayed as common? What's the crack with that? I mean, how's your draft going?
Well, I mean, I had to do I actually rang them, the Broadcasting Authority of Ireland today, because I think when you're making a complaint, you have to put it under a certain heading. You just can't. I mean, you could write it as feedback or write it as a complaint. And we have to make a decision about what we're going to do there. Is it going to be feedback or is it going to be a official complaint? And that's the difference. And they weren't there today to take my call, so I've left a message. So it'll be Monday. There's no point. I can't really do anything about it now, so I can't really write a draft until I'm clear about what I'm saying and under the right heading. Especially if it's a complaint. Another thing as well, they said if we go to the broadcaster first. Now I tried to find out information, because it's all in Irish. I couldn't find out. It's none of it's in English, so I have to kind of, Tina G itself, Chidi Carr itself, to talk to them, and write a letter to them directly obviously in English. So I don't know. We need to talk about what we're going to do, what strategy we're going to take, because it's too important to ignore. And I need to get a rap in the knuckles to say, well, listen, hang on a second. When you're doing a program on the new Irish, as in the new Ireland, you need to remember the people in the country might not see it the way, and an angle, the people who are coming in, they're coming into our country. They're and our own people are feeling, they can't say what they want to say, or they're too accepting, and they just welcome people in. Because a few things that were said now in last night's program, a young man, he came in and he was he had a good life here. He living in Liberia, came to this country when he was 4 or 5, stuck into GAA, and he said, but I'm Irish, but yet he was living in Liberia. He was born in Liberia. And to me, if I'm born in a country, I'm born in that country, even if I live in another country, like Australia, for example.
What's this idea of new Irish? Everybody's talking about this phrase, the new Irish. So what about the old? What's this old Irish?
Hang on a second. Before we leave old Fabu, there's something he said that I think really does need to be drawn attention to. If he had said that there will be no more Irish people here, I think people would have reacted differently. But he said kind of to the effect that white people are going extinct. White people. And I mean, it's a bit of a hornet's nest about, you know, identity and whether you want to consider yourself a white European or I consider myself Irish. You know, I mean, I this idea of being European is a secondary thing. But if he had said that Irish people will be extinct, I think it would have been a very different conversation than just.
I think that's what he meant, though.
I know, but it's the terminology. Because white is just this very big blanket thing.
Because so the Irish don't see themselves as necessarily white. They don't like using that word.
That's what I mean. So like, I think it would have been different had he used different terms. But
so it's okay to kick the whites then, yeah.
Kind of more so because that would be just the whites are getting kicked around everywhere, and it's also I think Irish people would take it more personally if he had said, well, Irish people are going to be extinct in Ireland, rather than just white people. But I was a bit confused about what the actual, like, what's this show actually based on? Because they used people who had learned Irish, which is freaking brilliant. It's great to do it, better than me in some cases. But also it's people that weren't. So it seems basically it was here are a bunch of successful integration stories. That's basically what it seems to be. And we're going to get a whole season of this now. It's going to be week after week after week. And in some ways, if everything else was taken care of, this mightn't be such a bad addition to the programming. But we also learned, I think it was yesterday, that RTE hasn't put enough money. They have failed in their obligations to provide enough Irish programming. And one of the shows that we get, even though they're selling a short, is this one. So it's a matter of like, who's in charge of programming that they say, well, we have the money for this. And this is basically going to be a PR exercise for a certain agenda in this country and nothing else. Because all they're doing is showing us successful integration stories. They didn't decide to make it a show on people coming to the country. This is only positive stories. And even that I could accept if they were doing more shows on the immigrant crime, of how things are changing, where the aggravation lie, whether it's in people failing to accept the newcomers or the newcomers failing to integrate properly on their own backs. But we're not getting that side of it all. We're only getting this is all good, this is all good. You know?
They're not delving any deeper as to why the people are coming in the first place. I mean, if it's refugees, if it's refugees, that means they're here temporarily. If not, you're an economic migrant. There's one girl that was an interview from Argentina. I mean, she was a lovely girl. I mean, they all were nice people. Let's be. I mean, she said she came here because she liked you too and stuff like that. I mean, some people are here probably because of genuine enough reasons, but there's a lot of people that aren't. And see, I don't think they're going to show that type of negative story on a show like that. It's light entertainment, and it would be more a heavy type show to show the negative aspects of it. So they're just going to say, look, it's a light entertainment show. It was comedy. Get over it. That's what they'll come back with, I think.
Right. They will. And like I said, that would be okay if there was a balance somewhere else in their programming. But there isn't. And that's what in a way, there's also a thing. It's a funny thing to say. That the people that are moving here are actually nice. We really shouldn't be surprised that they're nice. Does this require a program week after week? Most people are nice everywhere. So we shouldn't be surprised that whatever people are coming here are going to be nice. So the problem isn't about whether the people that come here are just nice or not. I mean, obviously, if there's crime, that's an issue, and that does need to be addressed. But it's a strange thing to make a program about without the balance. You know?
Yeah, there's no balance at all. Even if they had said something like, if he had preface it and says, look, we know that there are some issues around immigration, but we're going to focus on some successful, at least give supply context of it. But I don't get any of that. There's a lot of people coming back commenting here. I don't know if you can see them saying that it was just comedy and all that, which is kind of what we've said. And somebody said there, I thought you guys were into the jab genocide. Well, that's one thing, but the race issue is part of it. The immigration issue is part of it, isn't it?
The jab genocide.
I mean, we want controlled immigration. We don't want. We're not extremists. We just want controls of our immigration.
Sorry, hang on. Let me address this comment. Race issues. Most of the people that were on, well, a lot of the people. There was a guy from Brittany. There was the lady from Buenos Aires. Was it? There was a Vietnamese woman. What race issue are you talking about? What's he talking about?
Yeah,
This isn't about black people. This isn't about any particular color. This is just the idea of immigration. If you go through, okay, I'll take over this little section. When we knew this thing was going to be on, a few of us started hashtagging Aranua. And basically, those of us who have been saving, basically, a lot of the crime that immigrants have been committing in this country, we put it up under Aranua just to draw attention to it. Again, seeking to get this balance. And you'll find that, like, a lot of the crime, it's nothing to do with black people particularly. It's just that people who come here often come for different reasons. Some of them perfectly legitimate and some of them not. But just to ignore it is a problem, and a lot of people have suffered as a result.
We're just not going to ignore it. We're just going to talk about it in an attempt at getting balance. I mean, let's just talk about what the UN would describe. A depletion of a host country's population and culture is, under UN definition, is ethnic cleansing. Talked about what happened in Eastern European. If the Irish indigenous people are being depleted to such a stage where they've gone from 100% to less than 80%, that constitutes an ethnic cleansing. Karen?
Well, yeah, I mean, our country is kind of like too small to absorb the amount of people that we're getting in compared to, say, another bigger country. Regarding our culture, I mean, it is dwindling. Even our state broadcaster doesn't really do much to bring in Irish culture. It's all left to one channel. The other problem is regarding our ratio, like our 1.6 or something, the deaths to births. That's not sustainable. We're not producing enough babies for the future because our family size is too small. So it is dwindling. It's dwindling very fast. I mean, Irish couples are not having the large families that we seen when I was growing up. I lived on a street where there's two families. One had 14 children. One had 11. You don't see that anymore. And even families of 4 or 5 are considered huge, in this today's context. So we're not encouraged to.
So we're trying to address that, yeah.
Yeah, address that, and I know somebody's over in Hungary recently at a family-focused conference there a few weeks ago, looking at this problem, because Hungary, as we said before in previous live streams, Hungary is way ahead of the posse on this. Their policies on this issue regarding being pro-family natalist country, and they're seeing more people getting married and staying married and having more children, and our divorce rates are going down. So what are they doing that we're not doing? We're going the complete opposite way.
They've got Orban.
For one,
Sorry?
yeah.
They've got Orban, Karen. We have
Yeah.
Leo Varadkar, Joel Martin.
Yeah. And it's not, we don't have a family. I mean, despite what you think, we don't really have a pro-family culture anymore. Like, you might see it, say, if you're going to a restaurant, family hotels, family restaurants, family friendly holidays, and all that kind of thing. But it's superficial. It's not really good if you don't have a pro-family policy in your politics, in part of your strategy to bring the country forward. You need to make sure that the Irish couples have a way of having and many children as they want, still have work if they want it, and still have a good house and a place to live, and have the money to have and not be worried about it, because it's an economic issue. Because if you can't afford to have that money to have a third child, or you're not living in a place where you can have the room to have the third child, then that's it. Your family will always stay small, and then your family coming in, they have 5 children or the 6 kids.
What about the idea, Karen, of diversity as our strength? I thought Irishness was our strength. I thought the uniqueness of Irish culture, tradition, language, history, scenery, the people, I thought that was our strength. That was what people visited the country for, not to come to Ireland. That's great for diversity. They come to Ireland because they want to soak up Irish culture, don't they?
Yeah. And that's why we would go to France on a holiday to see French culture. We don't want to see something the same as our own. We want to see something different. So when we go to see, say, Sweden or France or Italy, we enjoy their music and their art and their their culture, and then we come back home and we say, oh, that's a great place to go for holidays. We want to enjoy and appreciate they appreciate their culture, and they don't let die, but yet we're letting it die. We're not fighting enough for it. And I was seeing a young lady who in the first episode of Erin Ure, and she went to Gaeilge school, and it was unusual because my father said just go, because it was a leaflet that came through the door, and she ended up going to Gaeilge school, and she learned Irish, and she's a fluent speaker, and she's now working in Radio na Lifa, I think it's called, and she has her own little show.
Yeah, it's in Dublin.
And yeah, she's taking on the culture like that. But yeah, I don't think the Irish people, especially down in the public, are kind of grasping that in any way, unless you are in Gaeilge school. If we don't seem to care about the language. You don't seem to care about our culture. We seem to kind of
things on Twitter. Sorry to interrupt. I saw some of the things on Twitter. I think Dahi, you put it up maybe on the Erin Ure Twitter feed. Where what a lot of people, or what some immigrants think of Ireland compared to their own culture.
Yeah.
You ask them, what do you think of the culture, the language here compared to their country? They go, their country's food,
It's
food,
one of these
food.
things. Yeah.
Their weather is better. Everything's better. Where do you live? Ireland.
Yeah.
And I'm going, what? Like, they hate everything about Ireland, and you ask them where they living, and they go, Ireland. Explain that one to me. Why is it they're doing that? Dahi? Why are they living in Ireland?
Probably for financial reasons. But let me just say one thing about, like, numbers will matter. I mean, I'm not actually against all immigration, and I think if anybody falls in love with somebody while they're abroad and they want to bring back a mate and start a family and all that stuff, I don't care what color they are. I really don't. The idea is, like, if an Irish person brings someone into the country, they're married, blah 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 blah, all that stuff, I don't care about the color. It doesn't come into it for me. But at the same time, we all have to recognize that if you bring in too many people, especially all at once, you're going to change the place. And some people are quite happy with that. And in some cases, like certain minorities, well, like even social minorities within our own culture, they would have reason to not want to retain much of old Ireland. You know, like there have been, like, if you were a gay person in this country so many years ago, you don't want anything that's going to sound like it's taking you back. Now, I'm not gay myself, but I can sympathize with a certain degree of that outlook. There are things that were wrong in the past, but we don't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater. There was plenty that was great about Ireland at the same time. But number-wise, and we have to think, like, where the people are getting distributed. You know, there are certain people with more money, even like foreigners that are coming into the country. They're working for the Googles and the Apples. They're going to Dublin and Cork, and etc. But then a lot of the Eastern Europeans and people like that are coming to smaller towns and things. So it's not even an even distribution of who you're getting. And I looked up one little statistic which I thought was kind of interesting. If we've got about 645,000 non-Irish immigrants in this country right now, right? Now that, I know you could add up people who've already gotten citizenship and illegal immigrants, all that stuff, but the number is about 645,000, right? That's just about equivalent to about 10 counties of Irish. If you add up certain counties to the east and a little bit.
Yes, we're a small country. We want to be a bit
but that's about 648,000. So we've almost got as many foreigners in the country equivalent to 10 counties. Now, that should wake anybody up. And that means those people they're being distributed into cities for the most part. So it's like all of the cities are getting changed rather quickly. And so, like, while some immigration and selective immigration might be fine, I don't think we needed to improve our blood stock. But I do think, like, some of it's okay. But we've got way too much. It's about 13% now, foreigners in the country. That's non-Irish citizens. 13%.
13. Some people say 16. Some say 20.
Well, the thing, when people start looking at, like, up to 20%, they're including people that were born in the north, right? Because they're officially born in the UK, but they're Irish people that have moved down.
Well, just as a comparison, I think the North's figures for that are around about 3%. So that gives you a little bit of a comparison, you know.
Yeah. We've brought in an awful lot very recently, and too fast, too much,
it's
too
scalable.
fast. Yeah. So.
I mean, some of the reasons that, you know, where are you on the diversity is our strength then, Dahi? need I ask?
I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan, not particular. I think because of our history, that we needed a bit of a breather, a chance to rebuild the culture, and we're not getting that. We're getting a lot of stuff thrown, and it's very hard. Like, I mean, even on the show last night, and one of the footballer, I think it was, Bidou Saya. He was from Liberia, that guy.
Yeah.
But I mean, you could see it. Like, he doesn't want to deny the place that his entire background is from.
Yeah, he doesn't.
All his family up until himself, are from Liberia. And so, but he's had a good life here. He admits it. He knows there are problems, and there are for people of his color, perhaps. But at the same time, in other words, he's torn, right? But I think it's strange that all of a sudden himself and even the other guy, what's his name, Jung Shakur, this idea when you start talking about that, all of a sudden their whole being becomes the fact that they're black, rather than just. So they're starting to identify with American culture or what happened to black people in other places.
Yeah,
like we didn't have black slaves in Ireland, I mean, so the idea that like all of the things that matter to like people in America somehow matter here. It's a strange. Why are you making this connection? Except unless you're going to prioritize your skin color over the country you're being raised in, and this is a problem. It's a problem for immigrants anywhere they go, whatever color they are. But the idea is you'll end up either having to choose, or just never choosing, and that's how they want more people.
People have a handy. It's like they have a handy little boat hole in Ireland. It's just used as a sort of a staging post for go over to Ireland, and then maybe you'll be able to bring your whole family over. And I don't think those reasons are positive for coming to a country.
And people will say that's what the Irish did in America, or that's what the Irish did in Britain, or that is what the Irish did in Australia. I mean, it's sort of just a truism.
They didn't get the goodies. They didn't get the state welfare that the people are coming in now.
The vast majority of immigrants coming to our country are working. Most of them have third-level education. So I know there's a lot of talk about asylum, and I have real problems with the asylum system, especially with what they're coming up with now. But like that's not where most of our immigration is coming from. We're getting 30,000 people coming into the country every year. They're coming in on work visas, So I mean, this is why I have a little difficulty when people are saying, well, if they work and pay taxes, it's okay. Well, it's like that could be millions and millions of people. I mean, so you have to go by the principle. There must be something you want to keep about Ireland being Ireland. Otherwise, just workers coming in, it's like you'll be flooded. And as far as the thing about being nice, I mean, when people are saying, well, we need to help people. I mean, if we just do the numbers, there are 82 million people that are displaced from their homes in the world. And about 50 million of them are like internally displaced. So that means there's still another 30 million people who are kind of not lost, but they're out of their home countries. They are officially sort of refugees. There's 30 million of them. We cannot take them all. And just bringing in enough to change Ireland.
You're saying about a lot of them are coming on visas and that, but a lot of them aren't too. There's a lot very generous welfare attractions to come in as well, isn't there?
Well, Europeans still have the right to come to the country, and the welfare doesn't immediately come to them. Like, they have to work and things first. And so long as we're a part of the EU, and we do not want to be a part of the EU, we want to get out of the EU. So like, as long as we're in that, we've got to separate our arguments. Like, if we're in the EU, yes, this is going to be a part of it. This should be a good reason to get out of the EU. Like,
well,
whatever.
Okay, Britain has pulled out of the EU.
Yep.
Supposedly. Look at the boatloads that are coming in every day into the south of England.
Yeah.
From France. They're not controlling those borders, are they?
They're not, because the people that are in charge don't want to. They could. I mean, if you look at real Brexiteers, if you look on people who really wanted it, I mean, they're complaining like hell. Why aren't you doing something about it?
Yeah, people will say there's the Human Rights Act. They say you can't turn people back.
Yeah, but somehow Greece has managed to, because they can say, well, actually, we think you're already fraudulent before you get here. Greece is turning people back. They're just getting in the boats and going, back you go. And people are complaining about it. But if you have the will, you'll find a little legal loophole to make it work. I mean, otherwise anybody can go anywhere and claim asylum, as we know. So, I mean, honestly, I mean, one of the things I would do if we ever got into power is I would just remove ourselves from any of these obligations. We should choose who we want to come in, when we want them to come in. So, right,
deportation and no appeal, as you said once, yeah?
Yeah, like I said, trust your system. Why do we have 3 appeals? Why do we have more? It's ridiculous. Just get them out. If you fail, you're out. And just in case somebody doesn't know, it's something I say often enough. The last statistics we have, 63% of our asylum seekers fail. So that means we're paying for these people to stay here, and then they fail, and then they still don't leave. So it's a will. It's a willpower thing. The people we have in government, don't want to get rid of them. So until we actually vote them out, we can expect more of this. You know.
Karen, look, any more comments before we go on to the other topic?
Well, I mean, I agree with what Jai was saying. You know, it's a difficult one. What I really have a problem with is your typical Irish person doesn't seem to want to take pride in their future. They seem to accept too much, and they need to look beyond, say, like Irish music and Irish, you know, the Irish pint and the Irish pub. Should really take pride in that what being Irish means, and realise that we can't be taking people in the way we are. We're a broken country as it is. So how can we get Irish people to admit and not be afraid to say, I want my Ireland to be my own until we get fixed? And like what Dahi was saying earlier on, we're not getting a breather at all to kind of get back to where we need to be to fix Ireland as a whole and everything. And then we can help people when we're fixed. That's what we need to be telling people. And we're the only party really saying, and not afraid to say it.
You're on an airplane, you help yourself first, and you help the others, yeah. That's true.
You know, we need to kind of give people the confidence to say outwardly that we need Ireland back and fix it. And then we can, and there's nothing wrong with helping people when we're in a comfortable, good place, spiritually, financially, infrastructurally. Sorry?
Emotionally, yeah, everything.
Yeah, everything. You know, because we do have a complex. We don't have enough confidence ourselves in as a people to do it. You know, and that's the problem. And we just seem to kind of say, "Oh, come in." That doesn't fix the problem for any country.
It's an inferiority complex, I think. I think it's an inferiority complex about Irish themselves. They just don't seem to be able to.
I don't think that's true, actually. I think people just don't think it's that much under threat. What the culture we have is the culture we have. I mean, I am not actually a backward-looking person. I don't think we need to like revive everything that ever was in Ireland. The culture we have is the culture we have. So whether that goes exactly possibly to all my interests isn't really what I'm most concerned about. I in that way, I'm more concerned about people's. Like the Irish people are going to look very different in 200 years, whether we retain exactly the music that we like to call traditional, or whether we keep the dancing we call traditional. But I'm more concerned about the Irish people remaining the Irish people, whatever music
I
we
agree.
like, whatever. Yeah. Right. So, like I said, I do value all these things, and I'm quite interested in them. But I don't think people are insecure about it. I think they're just kind of getting on with their lives, and they don't see that the whole thing's kind of under threat anyway. You know, I
think to a certain extent they have. We only had our independence from the UK 100 years ago, and then the next minute we give it back to the EU. So I think there's a fear of standing on our own 2 feet.
Yeah.
We lost the language. Sorry?
That's one way of putting it. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
We're afraid to be independent. It's almost they're afraid to leave home.
Now, a country that didn't claim back its language has got to be. You got to wonder why. What was the point of going? And made this point 100 times. Okay, look, we don't want to be. Lest we get complained about, criticised for being immigrant bashing again. Let's move on to the debate about this week we saw the extension to the vaccine passports row. I thought that was going to be temporary. Karen, you predicted that it wasn't going to be. Go on, you start us.
Skeptic. But you like to be proven wrong. I mean, obviously, look what happened in England there in July when Boris Johnson said July 19th was going to be Freedom Day for them, and it never happened. It happened much later. They want to extend the right to apply into to push these passports on the indoor dining until January. Now I'm hearing, before I come on tonight, a friend of mine here in the home was saying she's hearing that the pubs have been told they can lift these passport papers for come 22nd. Now I don't know whether that's because they can lift them, but the ability for the government to reissue them, the order up until January, is probably what they're trying to do. So it's a bit confusing. The other issue is some places, some businesses are taking it upon themselves and to ask for papers. Like a cinema. A cinema is not an indoor dining place. It's a cinema, like, a nightclub and things like that. So I'm seeing a bit pushback on that as well. But I mean, as you say, there is. We knew it wouldn't happen. They're going to come January and it's going to do the same thing. They do not want us to be free, and they're going to make it as awkward as possible for the likes of you and me and Dahi and anyone else who is not vaccinated to not have a life, and we're going to try and push us in that direction. And it's a matter of,
was it worse this time than the last time, or what? Was it closer or further apart?
It was actually, to tell you the truth, it was actually wider. It was 78 for and 54 against. That's disturbing.
So it was more in favour, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, you see Sinn Féin and they, Louisa Riley and Mary Lou McDonald voting for it, and yet I'm actually, my local Sinn Féin TD is all for having a fairer system, but yeah, her own leaders are voting for it. So it's very, you just don't know where you stand with Sinn Féin in that regard. They're definitely not going to push for the people. So it's a matter of constantly fighting to get this, get rid of these papers, because it's not going to end. And that's the other problem is with this extension. Stephen Donnelly now has the power again to extend that papers or the COVID pass to other areas, and he hasn't done it yet. Like so your concerts now and your, say, transport or cinemas, whatever. He can do that when he sees fit, if the numbers go up in the next few months, which obviously will. Sorry?
We saw it working so well in Donegal, didn't we?
Don't go there.
Oh, no. Dahi, what's your take on the vaccine passports?
I'm wondering what they're going to do in 6 months when the efficacy declines after so many months, and then they're talking about the next booster and the next booster, and then you'll always have to have the next booster in order to be able to go to these places. That's more what I'm concerned about. And since it seems to be so much luck, I mean, they happen to have chosen the AZ, but it's turned out that, what is it? Moderna was rejected now by Sweden, and I think Finland.
That's right.
So, it just so happens that they've chosen AZ, but we just don't know we don't know everything there is to know yet. We don't know what possible side effects. I think they came up with today they were saying that there were 80 cases of heart inflammation. They're not telling us whether it was which people are getting this now, but it's because of the vaccine, but we don't know which vaccine they took. Right, so they're holding some information back. I read today there was over 15,000 side effects, but they're not saying which vaccines were used for these people. So they're kind of leaving out information and then telling you, well, you're still better off with it anyway, And like I said, but I don't know if I would be particularly. I mean, I'm a fairly healthy guy. I'm getting to the age where possibly I should be worried about this, but I'm not yet. I mean. So I don't see at this stage why I would need to. When the time comes, I'll take it if I need to. But I don't need to now, and I haven't felt obliged to yet. So yeah, I'm kind of staying out of some places, but some of the fun's been taken out of that anyway.
You haven't had a chance to travel to the States since this all started, yeah?
I haven't been to the States in 30 years. so
you no real desire.
It's not my thing. No, God, no. But more likely, I do travel, but I tend to go east, and I haven't been there either because all of that's shut down. So
Right.
that's a drag. I mean, yeah, I'd like to, but I'm going to wait until I'm satisfied that it's healthy enough and that it's not going to like screw me up, you know. But
Just as a comparison, again, in the north, we don't have any vaccine passports. Sinn Féin actually had a wee bit more common sense about it. The SDLP were fanatical about bringing it in, but Sinn Féin actually said that there is something that they don't necessarily want to go down the line of, and which seems to be a wee bit at odds with what they're doing down south. Aren't they very much in favor?
Why is such a discrepancy between the two of them?
Well, that's always a point. That's always been said, that they seem to have discrepancy between north and south on a lot of things. You know.
I don't know.
I think there's a lot. I think there's a lobby, a strong lobby against going down that line up here. And I think the SDLP have went out on a limb on it. They've overreached, and I think it's going to harm them. They thought maybe everybody would have got behind it, but thankfully they haven't. And voluntary would be, you know.
Yeah. If you want to do it, do it. You know, but also there's something else. I don't know if you've heard about a company called Merck. They're coming up with might be what, well, for lack of a better word, we'll call it a cure. So in other words, if someone happens to get it, then they'll actually have, as opposed to some other things that have been supposedly discredited, they'll have this officially, you know, it'll have the blessing of the chemical companies and everybody to say, okay, this one's okay. But the problem is that, well, it'll be for people who have yet to catch it. So like if someone like myself at this stage, I mean, I'd be better off risking catching COVID and then taking the cure than risking taking the actual vaccine at the moment. So I'm happy enough to just wait around.
I think there's a balancing point. I think if the balance tipped in a certain way, you would say, well, maybe age-wise, it's maybe worthwhile taking it compared to the risks of not taking it. But I think for certain cohort, maybe that would be. But for a younger, I'm not sure. You know.
Yeah. And the other thing I would like to mention, if we can get in here, another reason I'm trying to find out at some stage whether any of these have not used fetal remains, right? We still have this problem. I don't know if you saw, like, Project Veritas came out, and it was people from Pfizer, and they were saying, yes, they actually have used aborted babies, ultimately not to actually make the vaccine, but in other manufacturing and in other testing. So like they are using aborted babies to actually ultimately produce this stuff. And being quite against abortion, I'm not happy with taking this thing. So
yeah, like, that's exactly and that's
it's not a religious thing. It's just the idea is like I'm against abortion, so I really don't want to be complicit in this. You know, so if I can find one that doesn't have it, I'll be a happier man.
Well, I heard last year when I was we were in Belfast, I remember Otoole, and we're talking to a lady who was in, you know, she was involved in the vaccines, and she seems to know an awful lot about them, and a lot more than I would at the time. And she mentioned this subject, and I wasn't sure about it. Like, you know, is that true? But like, it obviously is, and I would have a huge problem with that. You know, I'd be more concerned about the effects of the jab than actually COVID. And there is other ways of keeping you, and you say you're healthy, and we're all healthy, thank God. You know, of boosting your immune system, especially this time of the year when it's winter. And we need to kind of educate ourselves on nutrition and remember what we already know. We've forgotten a lot of stuff we already know inside from our parents and our grandparents. And I tend to kind of give as much information, say, well, listen, you need to take this. And I went down and I bought a load of stuff to stock up for a few months. And, you know, extra vitamins I probably wouldn't get in my food, because I think that's better. It stands to you better if you prevent any kind of infection, like, you know, a common cold and all that, than waiting for some jab to kind of fix you for the next few months. And we all know that's not about your health.
Well, it's also forever, because they're already saying that you're going to need boosters. So it's kind of like once you get on this, you're going to be stuck with it forever unless they decide that it's done. Sorry?
Look at Israel.
Well, yeah, sure. So there's a lot of things that aren't just about medication here. It's about power and what they might do, but we don't want to trail too far off the subject. But yeah, I'm just generally it's a right of the individual thing, and so I think that needs to be defended until you're happy enough to. If you're happy enough to take it, but it should. Well,
what I want to know is what is the reasoning and the thinking of using fetal matter in it, and any kind of, I don't understand the logic of it.
Well, it's because the cells, it's when they want to test these things, fetal tissue is much more amenable to the test. It produces quicker, and so it's cheaper, basically. So
Jesus, that's disturbing.
Yeah, but since all of these, I mean, let's face it, Janssen was taken down. Remember Johnson & Johnson? They got pulled after a while. Now Moderna's gone. Maybe we just haven't heard the worst of AZ yet. But so it's been luck in some ways that Europe was, or at least Ireland was happening to use this more than any other one. If we'd have been using the other ones all this time, we might have more problems. But they let them be used on the public because it was an experimental vaccine. Yeah. If it's not even a vaccine, but a treatment.
Well, guys, look, we said we'd talk about, there was a few requests about having a quick chat about the tax harmony and the removal of Ireland's independent tax laws, the corporation tax, corporate tax. The government has flip-flopped. They have gone back on their election promises, all of their promises. I think it's something that we maybe need to do a separate stream on rather than.
I know more.
But just a quick. Anybody got a quick comment on it? I mean, it looks like they've all gone back on their word, and they're saying it's all in Ireland's interests now. Anybody got a quick comment?
As no great lover of having our country taken over by multinationals, there's a certain part of me that likes this, but I don't want people to lose their houses. Right. So we don't really know. I mean, there are different articles coming out. There was one in Unheard magazine saying that Ireland is potentially going to lose hundreds of thousands of jobs to this, because then Ireland has lost its great attraction point. So if they were only here because we spoke English and we had low taxes, well, then they're going to leave possibly to go someplace cheaper if it comes to it. Not elsewhere in Europe necessarily, but maybe someplace that has better language skills than we do. I mean, as it is, we're importing those. One of the reasons why rent is so high in Dublin is because they keep importing people. So I don't know. It's a mixed blessing if they leave, So I don't know if I'm the best person to speak to the economics of it. But I mean, if you're going to be in the EU, this is what you get. How about that?
Well, we were independent of it, but I think it's the EU that's brought us into line, as it were.
Well, but all 27 countries have agreed on it now. So everybody's going to have an EU. And it's not just the EU.
Well, I mean, I agree with. I mean, we don't want to see people lose their jobs, and a lot of people, Irish people, are in those jobs as well as people coming in, taking the Googles and the Facebooks. But it always bothered me that the government were giving all these breaks to American companies and other foreign companies, and not give that to the humble Irish person who wants to start their own business that me or you could not get, and we're struggling, and we would never get those breaks ever. And that needs to be a playing field that needs to be leveled very quickly, and they need to develop more indigenous businesses, more, whether it's technical services, whatever, production. I mean, we're great, we're very creative people, and it's great ideas in the Irish people to have businesses, and you see it all over the place. It's not just trade; it's all types of craft and art and making clothes and that kind of stuff. So there's loads of potential there to develop cottage industries and other kind of industries. So why aren't we getting that break to help us along? And then in time, develop, bring in more taxes later on, but give the Irish person a really good kickstart, and then have them indigenous Irish businesses, and then locally as well as in the cities. So people are working all over the country, not just in cities as well. So it can be done. It's just the will that's not there. Yeah. And hopefully now this will force them to do it.
Yeah, someone's mentioning Blackrock in the notes,
chat,
the comments. Yeah, that is well worth your time to looking up that company. They're big. They're taking over all kinds of stuff all over the place. They're well worth looking up.
That's Paul Oneill. Yeah, Paul, good man.
I don't know enough about them. I heard of them though, but I didn't know enough about them.
Well, Collette seems to know about them as well. Yeah, I mean, we could have had. I think Fergus would be a good one to have a chat about this, and Herman did a piece on it the other day as well. I'll put that in the comments. It's one for another day to get really into the nitty-gritty of it all. But look, I don't want to go over our time. We're on for 50 minutes now. I think it's been a pretty good chat.
Right.
I think we might have had a few interlopers at the very start of this. Got the gist of the flavour of some of those comments. Anybody else get that?
I've seen some
that's
of
right.
them.
I think there might have been
We
one or
want people
two that
coming in.
were. You're gonna get
Well, I
that.
mean-
They're on to us. We must
No,
be hitting them.
I hope so. I hope so. Maybe we can like break some delusions that people have about us.
Yeah,
which is a good thing.
That's what it's all about.
Yep.
We're not just blood. We're not. We have to touch on this. We're not immigrant bashing here. We're just discussing the lack of balance and everything about things like that. Nobody else is. Okay, guys. Look, we'll wrap it up there. Thank you very much.
Good night.
Let's get on with your Friday night. Ihawa.
Woohoo! We
EY.
can't go anywhere.
Good
We
night.
can't go anywhere. We're not vaccinated. But anyway,
Get your passport out. All right. Long live.
Good night.
Suzann.
Good night. Thank you.
And thank you very much, everybody. Gurmila Mayagav. As chat viewers.